because it is so popular in this house. It goes mega quickly. So I break the biscuits up in a bag with a rolling pin and a little bit of aggression. Ugh. And it's just a question of, oops, but it just is so, oh, that is so lovely. Hello my darlings, today we're going to be finding out how to bake my very popular baked cheesecake. I absolutely adore baked cheesecake. Fridge cheesecake's absolutely fine. I must admit I have not found a recipe yet that makes me as excited for the texture of baked cheesecake. So I'm going to show you how I do this one, which is fabulous the day after. It's still nice to eat on the day, but this is really good if you want to prepare something for a dinner party or to take somewhere or whatever. Do it the night before, because by the next day it will be the most perfect texture ever. We do just about manage to save some for the next day because it is so popular in this house. It goes mega quickly, so I'm going to get straight into it. Now, again, with these things, you could do them in your own way. You don't have to use the equipment that I have. I will add alternatives in the description along with the recipe. So you could just go straight to the recipe if you want to just find out what to do, and then check out the chapters for bits and skills you need to know more on, or you can sit and join me and we will do this together, which would be very lovely. It'd be nice to have your company along with me as I go through this. So first things first, I'm going to be using a food processor. You can break the biscuits up in a bag with a rolling pin and a little bit of aggression. Good for good, getting out the annoyance of the day. But I'm going to be using this just because it makes my life easier. But as I said, having a good old whack with a rolling pin in a solid food bag, not too flimsy food bag, because the crumbs can cause some cuts. So after a few bashes, just check your bag and make sure it's not going everywhere. And a little bit of sugar just in. I'm just going to chuck that in with it. You could also, I'm going to be adding butter to this, melted butter to this, to mix it in the food processor. If you're doing the biscuits by hand in a food bag and with a rolling pin, you can melt the butter in a saucepan very gently, and then when it's melted, pop the biscuits and the sugar in the pan, give it a good stir, and use that way. That is absolutely fine. I'm just using a processor for ease. Both ways work. There's no difference. It's just whether you've got the equipment to hand and if it's easier for you. So I'm going to put this in here and give this a bit of a blitz. Yeah, that's fine. That's sorted out. So, like I said, if you have a saucepan and you've melted this in a saucepan, you can add your biscuits to that and stir it in by hand. It really isn't a hard job. It's quite simple to do. But just for ease for me, I'm going to do it in here, and then it all just comes together for me. So I've poured in my melted butter, put my lid on, and I'm going to give it another quick stir. Super. Right. Just get this lid off. Put that over there. Okay, so here I have my lovely gooey chopped biscuit base. Now, before I do anything else, I normally would have this already lined for, the video, but this is lined in a slightly different way. So I'm going to show you how it's done, because it's actually really simple. Normally, I would grease this all with butter all the way inside, and then I cut out a circle, and then I cut out a line with little frills and stick it around. Blah, blah, blah. It's a long process, but this is super easy. All you have to do with your springform tin, separate it, get a piece of parchment, pop it on top, put the tin back on over the centre, press down, and bring it back in. That's it. So you have this sort of little frill all around the edge of baking parchment, which, of course, you can trim carefully. Don't just go like that, because you'll actually could rip it inside the pan. So just carefully tear around so you've got less of a big skirt and more of just this protective layer on the bottom, which is all we're going for. So I'll just take a few bits of these edgy bits off. There we go. Sorted. So we've got this already. Oh, there's a bit of suction there. So this is already, just push that down there a bit. Make sure it's not too tight because you don't want it to rip. To be honest, it doesn't really matter if it rips because it's only just the base to stop the cheesecake from sticking to the pan, so you can be a bit more flexible. So I have got my lovely gooey biscuity mix. Pop that there for a second. A bit of biscuit. And pop it in to the base of the pan, and we're going to pop this in the oven just for 10 minutes, just to bake through and reset. Otherwise, if you didn't do it, it would probably go a little bit gooey when you put the cheesecake mixture in and bake it then, because the mixture would start to seep a little bit into the biscuits. And we don't want that. We do want, as that meme on the internet says, a buttery biscuit base. Right, now, the easiest way to do this... Oh, now, actually, I've just remembered something. I forgot a process, which is very me, but I have managed to remember in time. If you get to this stage like me and forget, because you have forgotten to read the directions, the description, don't worry, it still can be saved. I have another bowl of melted butter, and I've just got to brush the side of the pan. I mean, to be honest, even if you do forget and you put the biscuit in and press that, it's still going to be fine, because the biscuit itself has got butter in it. So that itself is going to protect from sticking to the sides. So this is mainly for the cheesecake. So like I said, if you forget, you're like, oh, put the biscuits in, and it's all nicely set, ready. Even if it's been in the oven, you can still do this, because it's just to give that extra easy layer of popping your cheesecake out when it's baked in the oven. So I've done that just in time, and what I am going to do is, I'm just going to pop this egg yolk in with the eggs because we're going to need that later. Is take a cup and just squish it out to the edges. It'll take a while. This is a bit sticky, this one. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to use my spatula at first. Okay, so now I'm just going to flatten this out with the glass. Again, you don't have to do this. You really don't. It's, you know, if you're fine with it, if you think, you know what, that's fine, that'll do me, then that's okay. And to be honest, it didn't really need much of the glass in there. Just a little flattening down. That's it. That's it. It's fine. There we go. All sorted. Done. So this now is going to go in the oven for 10 minutes. And we're just going to bake that through and then let it cool. And while this is in the oven and cooling, I will be showing you how to make the actual cheesecake bits in the mixer, which is nice. And again, you can use a bowl and a wooden spoon, no problem with that whatsoever, and a whisk, which you may need, a balloon whisk. I will put those utensils in the description so you can see, you know, if you want to use specific hand equipment. It's not very expensive, that's fine. But I also, as I said, I'm going to be using the stand mixer just for ease, so it is a flexible dish. You could do it either way. So I'm going to put this in the oven and I'll be back in a minute to tell you the rest. See you in a mo. Hi there, and just want to show you the biscuit base is now out of the oven. It's been in there for 10 minutes. It's smelling divine. Now, also, I was going to say, I put butter on before it went into the oven. I remembered I did this myself because when I did this last time, the pan was a bit hot when I put it back in and I didn't want to melt. I had a plastic pastry brush back in the day when I made this the last time, and I've got a different one now. So I put the melted butter on before it goes in the oven. Technically, you're supposed to put it on after it's come out the oven, before the cream cheese goes in. Just from a personal point of view, I put the butter on before. It is a non-stick pan anyway, so it's not going to be very sticky, so it's not the end of the world. If your pan is aluminium, then I would suggest trying to find a brush, like I've since found, that definitely won't melt on a hot surface when you brush it. There's silicone brushes you can get these days which are brilliant for that kind of job, and you can put the butter on when it's hot. My apologies for not explaining that when I put the butter on earlier. I'm still in the mentality of a plastic brush that I used to have, so that's why I do it that way around. Anyway, it'll be in the description if this is confusing you, so it'll be written out in a less confusing way. So anyway, to carry on, that's ready. That's just sitting there cooling. I'm now going to do the cheesecake inside. So for this particular section, we used the whisk. Now it does say, and I found this really cumbersome, to add the beaters first and mix the cheese and the sugar and the flour in. But I found that just really faffy and a lot of washing up to do the beater, to mix that up, scrape the beaters, scrape it down, blah, 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 then add the whisk. So what I'm going to do is by hand this little bit. Now, if I can do this by hand, anyone can. It's quite easy. Here is my cream cheese. So I'm just popping into the big bowl. Now, I used, to be honest, I used just an Aldi sort of label cream cheese. It's supposed to be full fat. I think there might be one low fat cream cheese in here. I've not found it makes any difference. Some people will be thinking I'm an absolute philistine for saying that. And again, it's up to you whether you want to use whatever brand. I know a lot of people will say, oh, it's got to be high brand, but no, I just use ordinary supermarket stuff. It's absolutely fine. So then we pour in the sugar to mix it in and the flour to mix that in. And all we have to do is just incorporate this together. It's going to get a really good mix anyway when we beat in the eggs. And it's just to get these sort of little powder bits in, because it's really, you know, cream cheese isn't hard. It's cream cheese. So it's creamy. And it's just a question of, oh, sorry, just splashed that everywhere. Don't know if you heard it land on the foil. And there we go, that's it. I mean, I could have done it with the beaters, but it just seemed really pointless to do it that way. So let me just do this, and now pop this back into the mixer with the whisk attachment, so we can now add the other bits. So the next bit to add is the grated lemon zest. Just pop that all in. I could have added that in when I was mixing it, to be honest. It's not really the end of the world to add it at this stage, but it's just, that's what it said on the instructions, so I was following those. The lemon juice and the vanilla. Oh gosh, that does smell amazing with the lemon in. But the vanilla, I mean, this is a kind of a New York type cheesecake. I'm being very generous. I do love a proper bit of vanilla. This is a beautiful vanilla paste that I use, Madagascar bourbon vanilla, which is my favourite of all time. And I don't like to waste a single drop of it because it's really quite pricey. This is the only thing I will get that's a bit pricey. Everything else is what I can afford on my housewife budget. But there are some things which I just love, and I have to say, Madagascar bourbon vanilla, oh, it really has a deep warmth to it. It's absolutely gorgeous. So, right, we've done all of those, and we've done all of those. So I'm just going to mix this in before I mix in the eggs. Now, it's 3 eggs and an egg yolk. So there is an egg yolk just plopped in here. You can't see it. I don't know what to tip it up too much, just in case I do a typical me and throw it everywhere. So I'm just going to mix that up. If I could plug it in, that would be good, wouldn't it? Right, I've just mixed in the vanilla and the lemon and the lemon juice. I just want to make sure there was a tiny little drop of vanilla on the edge. There it is. It's absolutely minute. I just want to make sure I've got that. But this particular mixer is so good. This will be very good with getting everything. Yeah, everything's mixed in absolutely fine. Oh, I can eat this just like this. I know that's weird, but it just is so. God, that is so lovely. The lemon isn't the overpowering flavour. It has just a kind of back note of sharpness to cut through, and it's not very sharp. Just to cut through the creaminess and the sugar and the vanilla. Oh my days. So, so beautiful as flavour. Right. Oh, just to taste that. Right, so when we add this, we add it a little bit at a time. I'm going to do it through the little thing here, just to save me lifting it up and over and up and over. But when you add it, if you're doing this by hand, and you can do it with a balloon whisk by hand, that works as well, because we're not really whisking it like a meringue or egg whites. We're just kind of whisking it in and keeping it as light an area as possible. But it will, because it's baked really slowly, that air will kind of come in and then it'll settle, and then you'll get that wonderful cheesecake texture the next day when it's really settled into itself. It's absolutely brilliant. So I'm just going to start this now and do bit by bit. Second bit going in. Third bit going in. Right, so I've just finished this bit and it's now quite liquidy. So I've got to make sure I get all that off the whisk so it doesn't drip everywhere. Oh, she says dripping it everywhere. And now we've added that. Look, I just want to do a really quick scrape of the egg, because we're adding a liquid to a liquid, especially egg, which is a kind of weird consistency with another weird consistency. Sometimes the eggs just sit on the edge of the bowl, and we just want to make sure that's all mixed in, because the last thing we want is cheesecake scrambled egg, because that'd be really grim. Then, for the next bit, we're just going to add some sour cream, which is a staple ingredient of cheesecake. I've never tried it with with normal cream. I always assume that majority of the time sour cream is in a recipe. It's usually because of the sourness is very helpful to the chemical reaction for the actual ingredients that you have in the cake. Oh, should I mix this up? Doesn't really matter, it'll be fine. And I have to be honest, I haven't looked into the science of cheesecakes. Maybe I should. I know Heston Blumenthal would probably been mixing this with dry ice by now. And the bark of a tree only found at the top of the Alps or something. Right. Here we go. So that's just the sour cream popped in, mixed in, and we don't want to overbeat this. As I said, we're not making a meringue. This isn't supposed to be incorporating a huge amount of air. It's just to kind of mix it through and mix it through thoroughly, hence the whisk. So I'm just going to put this on again, but I'm not going to have this on too high. It's literally just to blend it in, and that's pretty much done the job. That's all we need to do. Right, so let me get my baking sheet. Now, it is best to do this, put this on a baking sheet, a lined baking sheet, because although I'm pretty convinced this is going to be nice and airtight because we have our buttery biscuit base on it, sometimes you never know when it might be that time, and it has happened to me once. There is the tiniest of holes, the tiniest of leaks, and I poured it in and only a tiny bit has dribbled out, but that's fine because as it bakes, of course, it firms up. But it is just in case there is the odd little leak that it comes out. At least it comes out of that, because you really don't want dried cheesecake in your oven. So I will just lift up this gorgeous mixture. Just get that off the whisk there, so we've got all of the yumminess. And just to save the bottom of my blender, it's a lot easier to clean. She says putting stuff everywhere. Gosh, that didn't work too well, but I was doing it to try and show you with the camera. Normally I'd be much better, honestly, it's true. Right, so we just get that out of the way. Ignore all the mounds of washing up that I've got there. And now you can see the pan. It is beautifully cool. I have to say, we are doing this on a freezing cold day. It snowed yesterday, so just to tell you what the sort of seasons are like. That said, we're in springtime, so it's really weird. So a week ago, we had barbecue weather, where it was absolutely scorchio, and then 2 days later it snowed. So it is cold right now, and this is like what you can see. It's literally, you know, tepid, lukewarm. So this is fine to put this on, and of course it's going straight to the oven anyway. So all you do, it's quite simple. I mean, the whole recipe is really, really easy. You could easily do this without a food processor, without a stand mixer, without even a hand mixer, because it's just a case of just some thorough mixing, and like I said, using a balloon whisk would easily work. I mean, quite often people use balloon whisks for making meringues in the old days when I was little. when I was cooking when I was 6 and 7 and stuff like that. I had a cookbook which I was always in. It was my favourite thing, and it had taught me how to make meringues. So there's me, 7 years old, in the kitchen, as it's the 70s. I was on my own. Nobody was there telling me how to use the oven. I mean, I knew how to use the oven, but I was unsupervised. I would sit there with the bloom whisk, and I would just by hand whisk these things. That's right. I remember actually, sorry to just completely go off on one, making it with a fork. I have made meringues by whisking with a fork. Yes, that does take quite a while, but when you're 7 or 8 years old and you've got all the energy in the world, it's actually not that bad. And I was quite determined to get the meringue. I think it was a lemon meringue pie or floating islands or something I was doing from the cookbook, and it can be done, but obviously I am not that age anymore. But I would say this recipe is easy with a bloom whisk. It's, you know, so simple to do. And we just move this out of the way so you've got a really nice view of how beautifully creamy this is. You can't see this right now, and sadly, I don't know if I'll just try and see if I can put it up to there. So I don't want to, obviously. There we go. I don't know if you see the specks of vanilla. And I don't want to obviously let it fall, but this carefully goes into the oven at quite a low heat for quite a while, and then when it's cooked, you open the door and you turn off all the heat, and then you let it cool in the oven. The goal is to not have a crack in the middle of a cheesecake. I have been baking for over 40 years, and I have never had a cheesecake that didn't crack in the middle. So, you know, I mean, I'm obviously not some sort of top chef or whatever, but I have cooked extensively for quite some time, and I've still not managed to master that. I know it's all a question of heat and stuff like that. Maybe I'm just too overeager and opening things too quickly or whatever. But it really doesn't matter. It doesn't. And all you can do is, when that does happen, if you've got a crack on the top, you can cover it with the cream, let the cream set with a whipped cream and a very thin layer so it fills in all the cracks, and then cover it with some compote or some strawberries or raspberries, or, you know, even a layer of chocolate or anything you fancy, to hide that. It really, I mean, cheesecake's one of those gorgeous things, especially this one, which you can mix with anything and it'll work. So if you want to hide it, fine. I don't mind. As I said, I am all about the flavour. The flavour is the most vitally important thing to me. So if it comes out cracked, as long as it tastes fantastic, and it does, then I am absolutely fine. So I'm going to pop this in the oven, and then when I come back, which is going to be in a couple of hours or so, obviously it'd be like the blink of an eye for you, and I will show you what the finished result is. Then I'm going to have to leave it in the fridge overnight, and I will cut a slice tomorrow and finish the video by showing you what it looks like inside with a cut slice of loveliness. And yeah, and then you'll be able to do it. So this is a bit of a longer one for my usual. I try to make things a little bit easier and quicker to cook, but it's just great if you want to prep something in advance. If you want an amazing dessert that's going to blow everyone's mind, this is it. Do it the day before, leave it in the fridge, don't worry about it, and then the next day bring it out to oohs and ahs, and when they taste it, lots of and yums and things. So be prepared for that. Again, make it your own. With this recipe, there are certain things you do need to adhere to. You do need to stick to most of the ingredients, just because that's the combination that makes a cheesecake, basically. But with regards to flavouring, that's where you can make this into something that is something for you. You could take half of it and mix half some chocolate in and swirl it in. As I said, when it's cooked, you can, you know, decorate the top, make the flavours however you want. I wouldn't know about putting a flavour at the bottom of the biscuit, between the biscuit and the cheesecake. I would suggest biscuit, cheesecake, and then whatever topping you want. And be as flexible as you want, but it is delicious, and I'm going to put this in the oven, and I will see you in a bit. I've just popped back to say that I just need to clarify the cooking instructions, because they're a little bit unusual for a cheesecake, in order to get the cheesecake texture that you're looking for. The cheesecake goes in for 10 minutes at the high heat that I've got on the description down there. So for my oven, which is a fan oven, that would be 200 degrees C for 10 minutes. Your oven, if it's not a fan oven or a gas oven, whatever, instructions down there at the temperature it should be for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, you turn it down to the temperature I've put down in the instructions again. And you do that for about roughly 45 minutes. When it's finished, it will be slightly wobbly in the middle. Not hugely wobbly, just a little bit of a wobble, because it is still a very cheese and egg mixture, which it goes like that. You leave it to cool in the oven with the door open, so you can normally have the door ajar. If not, I did have an oven once that didn't close, and I stuck a wooden spoon in. So when it closed on the wooden spoon, and that kept that little bit of air coming out. So you need to keep it in there and let it cool in the oven for 2 hours. Again, this is all to help the texture of the cheesecake. So if you don't do this, it might be okay, it might be a bit different, but I'm just following the cheesecake rules. And then, as I said, it's really best to store it in the fridge, as it is a dairy product, so it will need careful, you know, it will need to be put somewhere safe so it doesn't spoil or go off, as it has got milk and, even though cooked, but still eggs in. So 10 minutes in the oven at high heat, 45 minutes at low heat, 2 hours with the oven off and the door open. And I will see you back here with a finished cheesecake. Hi, I'm back now. It's been several hours. This has cooked. It has been in an oven for 2 hours cooling down. That I forgot to say to you that if you did want to have a slightly drier cheesecake and you leave the oven door closed, it will result in a more sort of suede texture of cheesecake, which is also delicious as well. So you'll just get a creamier one if you just leave the oven door open a little bit, and that's what I tend to do, but of course it's a personal choice. This has obviously got a crack on the top. It is a problem that I always have. Normally when I do cover the cakes with, you know, something, the cheesecakes with something, it'll get hidden anyway. But to be honest, this is going to be eaten at home, so we don't mind. Tomorrow, this is going to be a much firmer cheesecake, and it's going to cut like a proper slice. As I said, it's still a little bit warm, even though it's been hours. It's been cooling down, but it is still cool enough for me to put in the fridge, so that's what I'm going to do now. So once it's been in the fridge for at least a couple of hours to really just set up and go cold, before you unhook the hinge, just get your knife and very gently go round and just loosen it from the edges. This is non-stick and it's been brushed with butter, but it can still stick to the sides just a little bit, and that just loosens it. Obviously don't scratch your non-stick tin, you don't want to ruin those. And then you can spring it open and take it off carefully. So this is what it looks like. I'll show you a picture at the end with the cut and everything when I've taken a photo tomorrow. Thank you so much for sharing this time with me and coming along with this journey and this recipe. If you do make it, please, if you can, take a photo and tag me in it. It'd be really great. And I'll look forward to seeing you again for another one of my recipes. See you soon. Bye.